But first, we got to talk about this. Last night, Ben Affleck was on Jimmy Kimmel to promote his upcoming film on Netflix, Triple Frontier, which looks pretty damn good, by the way. And we all know that he wasn't going to be the Batman anymore, at least in Matt Reeves' Batman movie. We knew Matt Reeves was going to move in a different direction and cast somebody else. Fine. There was still a ton of speculation that he would still be Batman at least one more time in some other incarnation of Batman within the DCEU. Well, that got put to rest last night as Ben Affleck got on Jimmy Kimmel and he basically said this. He said, he was basically asked, why aren't you going to be Batman anymore? And he said this. I tried to direct a version of Batman. I worked with a really good screenwriter, but kind of just couldn't come up with a version. Couldn't crack it. Thought it was time for someone else to take a shot at it, and they've got some really good people. And then a little bit later, he just looked into the camera and definitively said, I'm not Batman. I'm not Batman. So that kind of puts and closes the book, I think. I would think, at least at any rate for most people, that closes the book on this whole, what would you say, odyssey, if you will? This whole adventure and odyssey about whether or not Ben Affleck was going to be Batman anymore. I want to point something out here, though. I want to point something out. Is when he was asked to explain why he wasn't Batman anymore, let me bring this back up again, and I think this is key and I think this is important. It wasn't in the last 3 months that he decided not to be Batman anymore. It wasn't 6 months ago that he decided to be Batman anymore. I want you to pay attention to this. When asked directly, like, why did you decide not to be Batman? He goes all the way back to when they announced that they were scrapping his script and he was stepping out as the director. He said, I tried to direct a version of Batman. I couldn't crack the script. He says that's when he stopped being Batman. That's like a year and a half ago, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe 2 years ago now. It's been years since that decision was made that he wasn't going to be Batman anymore. I want to remind you, that's exactly when I told you guys that he wasn't going to be Batman anymore. But here's the thing too, and this is the other thing, and when Ben says the reason he stepped down was because, I had a really good screenwriter, but I just kind of couldn't come up with a version. I couldn't crack it. Well, I don't believe that for a second. He's lying about that. And by the way, you're going to hear me say he's lying a couple of times here, but let me preface all this by saying this. I completely agree with why he's lying. And I completely agree that he should be lying right now because it is the professional thing to do. And I completely support and endorse what he's saying. He is saying all the right things as he has all along. But I want to remind you guys of this. Let's flash back now to after he was removed as the director and after he had already made the decision that he wasn't going to be Batman anymore. Now let's go back to Comic-Con 2017, after he had already stepped down as Batman. He got on stage at Comic-Con in 2017 and jumped up and down like Tom Cruise on Oprah's couch, swearing he was still Batman, even though now we know for a fact he wasn't. And he said this in 2017 at Comic-Con. He goes, let me be very clear. I am the luckiest guy in the world. Batman is the coolest motherfucker character in any universe, DC, Marvel, and I'm so thrilled to do it. I would be a fucking ape on the ground for Matt Reeves. Never mind being Batman. I'm really blown away and excited. It's a great time to be in the DC universe. Yay! And it was all BS. It was all bullshit. All of it. And I remember the night before that DC panel at Comic-Con in 2017, and the Hollywood Reporter had just come out with their report confirming what I had been saying, that Ben Affleck is out as Batman. I got on and I made a video from San Diego and Comic-Con saying, tomorrow at the DC panel, they will deny this. They have to deny it because they have Justice League coming out. You can't have the story be Ben, the star of this movie, is no longer going to be in this franchise. They got to come out and they got to deny it. And sure enough, Ben comes out on the stage at Comic-Con and says this, which was total BS. So now look, Let's go back to this statement that Ben made last night, that the reason I stepped away is I just couldn't come up with the story. I just couldn't come up with a story, Ashley, to make a good Batman movie. And I'm like, wait a minute, time out. First of all, we know you've been lying about your involvement with Warner Brothers and DC this whole time anyway, so there's that. Also, you're telling me that you, the Academy Award winner for Best Picture Filmmaker, that you, the Directors Guild of America Best Director of the Year, that you, a screenwriter with an Academy Award for screenwriting on your mantle, that you, the number one authority and fanboy of Batman in all of Hollywood, in the Hollywood industry, there's nobody in the Hollywood industry who's as big of a fan as Batman and knows as much about Batman as Ben Affleck. You're telling me that you couldn't come up with a Batman story that you were happy with. Really? Wow. BS. That's BS. Because guess what? He was so excited about his Batman. He was so excited about his story that remember this, guys? Remember this Deathstroke test footage? He was so excited about his movie and believed in his movie so much, he even did test shots of Joe Manganiello in the Deathstroke costume because Deathstroke was going to be the big villain, and he started releasing this stuff online to get us all excited about it. Ben Affleck wrote a script that was so good, that DC director and their storyboard artist, Jay Olivia, who, by the way, was the director of DC animated films, the celebrated Batman The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and the Batman The Dark Knight Returns Part 2. He directed Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox. He directed Justice League War. He directed Batman Assault on Arkham. He directed Batman vs. Robin. He directed Batman Bad Blood. And he directed Justice League Dark. And he does the storyboard work for a lot of their live action films as well. Jay Olivia, the director of all these Batman films, he got on Twitter and said, hey, the original Ben Affleck script was the best Batman script I've ever read. Ben had a kick-ass story, and I believe that the audience and fans would have loved it. Ben believed in it so much, he started releasing test footage of Deathstroke. You've got a seasoned Batman animated director and the storyboard artist for DC saying, this is the best Batman script I've ever read. He was super excited about it. Oh, but wait, now we're supposed to believe that, you just couldn't come up with a good Batman story? Really?
He's a great actor.
He is a fabulous actor, Ashley, as a matter of fact. He's fabulous. But guess what? It goes further than this. Because this is a page right out of the standard Warner Brothers playbook. Because Ben Affleck isn't the only director they parted ways with and came up with this, hey, you know what a good BS story is to save face for everybody? Just say, hey, you took a crack at it and really couldn't come up with a good story. If only we've heard that from somebody else. Oh yeah, Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon, who was attached to direct a Batgirl film for Warner Brothers for like a year. Joss Whedon, the guy who did Buffy, the guy who brought us the Avengers. Joss Whedon, king of the geek sphere for almost a decade or more. And when he parted ways with Warner Brothers, what was the official script? Here's what Joss Whedon said. There were elements that I just hadn't mastered that after a long time, I felt like I wasn't going to. I told people that I didn't have an idea, which isn't, he was on Batgirl for a year and he's saying I didn't have an idea, which isn't an exact truth. I had an idea, but it didn't fit in the space that was left for it. It was a little bit heartbreaking. This is exactly the same thing that Warner Brothers is now having Ben Affleck say. This is their playbook. Their cover our asses statement when they have to part ways with a high-profile director is say, let's just get the high-profile director out there saying, oh yeah, I was really excited about it, but I just couldn't come up with the right story for it. Bullshit.
It's a good sympathy card approach to it. I feel like, that's exactly what they're trying to do with their PR. They're just trying to make people be like, oh, I mean, I feel for him, like he probably was like really trying and he just couldn't hack it. So let's just let it go.
And that's exactly it, Ashley. It's PR.
Yeah.
It is the PR spin. And you know what? This is why I said at the beginning, they're lying, and I'm totally understanding why. And I'm totally cool with it because it is a PR spin that does save face for everybody. It saves face for the studio. It saves face for the directors. And by the way, and it leaves the door open for the studio and the director to work again on something else later. It doesn't burn any bridges. But make no mistake about it, my brothers and sisters in film fandom. This guy who says he couldn't come up with a story for Batman is an Academy Award-winning screenwriter with the deepest knowledge of Batman out of any of the Hollywood elite guys. He was so excited about his script, he put out test footage of Deathstroke, and the script was apparently so good that a seasoned Batman director comes out and says it was the best Batman script I've ever read. Don't feed us this BS that he couldn't come up with a story. I mean, I get why you are feeding us this BS. I understand why, and I do not blame Warner Brothers, and I do not blame Ben Affleck in the least. He's acting professional, and I appreciate that about him. I'm just saying that we as fans don't buy it for a second, because Ben ain't the first one to do this. We've seen this song and dance before from Warner Brothers when they've had to part ways over a high-profile director on something. So the bottom line here is this, Ashley. Ben Affleck is done. I've said for a while that he was done, but I also said I believe there was a 50-50 chance he could do one more film simply because there was still one film left on his contract. But Ben has now even put that to bed. Because because one of the other things they did at Kimmel was they took his Batman costume and hung it in the rafters like a sport. When they retire a jersey, they hang up the jersey in the rafters.
I have FOMO. I want to see this film.
I wanted to see a Ben Affleck directed and written Batman movie so freaking long. I think he's the guy. He was the right guy to do it. And I don't know. There was other drama. I don't know what all the other drama was. I've heard some things. Whether I believe it or not is irrelevant. But yeah, so they hung his Batman costume up in the rafters, and they had him put an exclamation point up on it by saying, "I'm not Batman." And my heart broke. I've been dying to see a Batman written tears, Ashley, because I've been waiting to see a Batman movie by Ben Affleck for so long. This breaks my heart. But at least now, with him coming out and definitively saying, not just that I'm not in the Matt Reeves Batman, him coming out definitively saying, I'm not Batman. At least now that closes the book. That closes the book on this chapter of everything. We can now, as fans, turn all of our attention to getting ready to support whoever the next person cast is. My only hope, I don't care who they cast as long as it's a good, talented actor. That's all I care about. And then we can get behind that actor and we can start getting excited about Matt Reeves' Batman if he ever gets around to doing it, because that's been like years. But now we can turn our attention to that. So the closing of one chapter.
Batman? What if he's not Batman, but what if he's a different character in the movie? No, I'm just kidding. It's over.
I mean, who knows? Who knows? But I mean, one of the other things, one of the other films I'm excited for him is to get going on The Accountant 2, because he did The Accountant with Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers wants to do The Accountant 2. I loved The Accountant with him and the girl from Pitch Perfect. Lead girl from Pitch Perfect. Used to date Edgar Wright. Why am I drawing?
Anne, or what is it?
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, the lead girl from Pitch Perfect.
It's slipping my mind right now too. Isn't it like Anna Kendrick?
It's Anna Kendrick.
Yeah,
It is Anna Kendrick. Yeah. It's Anna Kendrick. Yes. So, and John Bernthal was in The Accountant. Hopefully now they can just turn all their attention to getting The Accountant 2 done. I'd love to see that film. And Ben, we didn't get enough of you, buddy. I thought you were the best incarnation of Batman that we've ever had. You're great, and I'll just look forward to seeing what he does next. All right, guys, with all that said, we've got a couple